I heard you had a near-death experience. What was that like?
I was born and grew up in Bogota, Colombia, and there I lived with my parents and my sisters. And back then, both of my parents worked and would leave us at the care of a maid. And she was a lady that really didn't pay much attention to us when my parents were not around. And one morning they left, it was early, and this lady went to her room, and my sister and I, she was close to 4, and both being so little, look at each other. I'm like, oh, nobody's paying attention. Let's go play in the patio. And they really didn't like us. So it was not that good to be in the patio by ourselves because it was a big tank. And the purpose of this tank was to collect water for hand washing clothes. And this tank was pretty big. It held about 900 gallons of water. And then my sister and I found a ball and decided, let's play. We didn't pick anything else, but let's play there in the tank. And then we found stools because the walls were tall, and we climbed the tank. And she sat in the flat surface for scrubbing, so she was a little bit more safer, but I, of course, had to be in the other side. And I bended my legs, and I was leaning very precariously in the tank. And my sister grabbed the ball, and she threw it. And at that moment, it's like we're just having fun. Who's thinking about anything, any danger or anything? And when she threw the ball, she didn't apply enough force, and it fell, and it was floating in the water. When I thought I can grab it, and I leaned forward. And the moment I touched it, it rolled, and I fell in the tank. And that was the moment, like the first feeling, Alan, was that sense of like this water was frigid cold. And I always mention that people have the misconception that because I was born in Colombia, I come from hot weather country, but Bogota is very high up in the Andes. So the first feeling was like, it's like I pretty much, like, that took my breath away right there, like the feeling of the cold. And I just went into this tense feeling when after that I realized why I cannot breathe. I never have been in a pool, never had my head under the water. I didn't know that if you fall, you're underwater, you drown. So imagine at this moment first, that feeling of being so cold, and now the sense why I cannot breathe. What is happening? And then I went into this state of absolute panic. The last thing I saw with my eyes open after I drowned was the darkness of the space, because it was a tank that was entirely made of cement. It had a roof, so the space in itself was dark. So the last thing, imagining this anguish, and on top of that, being in this space that seemed scary, when I am perceiving this darkness and I went into peace, I saw light. And this light came from below. And when I saw this light, it was, imagine that sense of like, now there is light, now I'm not in the dark. Going from that absolute horror in just a blink like that to a state of complete peace. It was like, nothing to do, no need to escape from the tank, no need to breathe, no need to do anything, go anywhere. I would just say complete and absolute serenity, peace, calmness. I started to see bubbles. I was looking at these bubbles, and it was by chasing these bubbles that I turned around and I saw a body suspended in the water. This is when I realized, that is my body. And this is another incredible part. It was that feeling of, this is normal. Like this sense of familiarity, like, it wasn't, how to say to you, like I didn't feel any sense of fear or any sense of, almost not even surprise. It was like, this is normal. Like this already happened before. And I was completely aware that that was my body. And that's when I saw the body and made the decision, no, forget it, I'm not going back there. And then I turned around and left the body behind. And then when I turned around, I started to see flowers, and the flowers were blooming from nowhere. Imagine this was like something absolutely beautiful, majestic. And it's when I was picked by the flower. So even at this point, that sense of dimension disappeared, because how I could be picked by a flower. It's like, now I'm being picked and I'm being carried. And it's just, this place where like, I don't have to do anything. Just there, completely relaxed. And I put the analogy that is like going back to the womb, where you don't have to do absolutely anything. You're just being done. It's just like, nothing to do. And then when I am in this state of bliss, in just a flash like that, I appear in the maid's room. And I am like floating, like on the ceiling, and I'm looking down, and she's there listening to the radio. And she's completely distracted. She doesn't know what is happening. And the moment I look at her, I said, "Oh, that's Maria." And Alan, this experience is so clear in my mind that I even remember the soap opera that she was listening in the radio. And later, years later, we just to prove that this was true, when I mentioned the name of the soap opera and everything, we went to do search, and this is all real. And then later, like when she just didn't pay attention, nothing happened. Again, like in just a blink like that, now I appear in my mom's path. Like I mentioned to you, she left very early in the morning. She went to work. She didn't have a car. She had to walk, and she had to cross this entire neighborhood. And then when I appear again, like floating above her, and I look at her from above, I'm like, "Oh, that's Mom." And this is what blows everybody's minds, because the moment, Alan, I said, "That is Mom," she stopped. She did not give another step. She did not hesitate. She just stopped, and she's like, "I have to go back home." It was the sense something is happening at home with one of my babies. And my mom turned around and she started to run back home. And at that moment, I look at her and I'm like, "Oh, why she's running?" And this is incredible, because again, this is the part that for the people that may wonder, I think this is a really good example of validating the experience, because at that moment, my mom was the one that perceived what was happening and started to run. So, but the moment that she's running, I changed my view, the perception of my horizons. I turned around and I saw a dog at the end of the street. And the moment I see the dog, I adore animals. And the moment I see the dog, I am with the dog. And I'm like, whoa. So I'm like, I turn again my point of view, and now I see a park. And the moment I see the park, I am in the park. And I'm like, wow, this is cool. And now I started to have fun playing this game of going places. So this whole concept, this whole perception I have of time and space completely changed, vanished. And now I could be anywhere at any time. And then I was having so much fun. And it was again like in a blink. Now I appear in a realm that was made of pure, intense, bright light. This is the first time, Alan, in the 3 years of my, almost 3 years, that I felt that I was home. It was that. So imagine if the feeling the moment I drowned, the feeling was that peace and well-being. Now just multiply this by 10 times. It was like, oh, I am home. I am home. Again, give another analogy, like I have left in the morning to go to school, go to work, whatever, and I was just back. It's not like even 3 years passed. It just happened. That it was that feeling of like, I just left and now I am back. And although I had seen my body suspended in the water, until this moment, I didn't have the realization that, wow, that is not me. At this moment, I had that clarity. That is not who I am. That is not Ingrid. And even was this sense that Ingrid, all these aspects that made what I knew as up to that moment as Ingrid, it was that sense, I am not that. And it's when I realized myself as a being of light. And I started to have this sense that I was like dissolving. Like I'm just like, oh, this feels incredibly good. And it's, again, like in this experience, everything happened like in a blink. In this moment, it's when I felt that some people call it emptiness, some people call it non-self, I call it nothingness. I went into that space, into that dimension, or into that feeling of nothingness. And some people get scared with the word nothing, but I said, it's nothing because it's nothing I knew, but it's the wholeness because it's experiencing the totality of everything. I said, I cannot give you description. There's no meaning, there's no color, there's no movement, there's nothing that I could describe with words, nothing that I could tell you. It's everything I have not seen. And at the same time, everything I have seen. So it's like experiencing wholeness. So I guess the only words I could say is a moment of absolute presence and pure consciousness. And I am like, how would you say now I am the state of complete bliss. And I am just there being when my mom finally arrived home. And this is the other thing, Alan. My mom, we live in a very big house, and my mom always listened to her intuition. And I have to say this, it's not just about having intuition, but listening to that intuition. And my mom did, not just by turning around and going back home, but when she entered the house, we live in a big house, but she knew exactly where to go. And she directed herself to the back of the house. And my oldest sister, she was still there. And some people asked me why she didn't go to the maid. And it was because this was a lady that actually was pretty harsh with us, and she mistreated us. So imagine, she didn't want to go tell her we are in the patio where we don't supposed to be. So she was there trying to help me, get me out of the tank. She was too little. She couldn't even reach me. And when my mom entered the patio, my sister looked at her and said, my mom Ingrid is there and I cannot get her. So my mom jumped in the tank. She got me out, and she worked with children. She was trying to do some kind of CPR, whatever she knew for children. And she started to do what she knew to revive me. She said that I was like a raggedy doll. She said there was no pulse, there was no breathing. I was completely pale, blue, lips and nails. And she's just doing anything she knew. But at that moment, I was completely disconnected to whatever was happening here. I didn't feel anything. I was in my bliss, while my mom was in there in her anguish, trying to do everything she knew. And again, like in everything in this experience, in just like a split of a second, I felt that I had jumped from the tallest building in the world. I felt the vacuum, like, and I felt like I was being pulled, like I was being like vacuumed back. And it's when there was nothing I could do, but it was that sense of like, no. And I didn't want to. And it's, in my case, nobody told me you have to go back, nothing. It was just, you're going back. And like being sent like directly through the shooting, like, oh, and now I am back in the body. And it was this sense, and I knew I was back because the sense of coldness, the sense of not feeling well, the sense of I really didn't want to be here. I was angry and I was disappointed, and I'm like, no way. And from that moment, Alan, things became really difficult because I became really angry. I didn't want to be back. And the other thing is that I came back with an awareness that I didn't have before. And this is the other thing. People ask, how can you know you were so young? But no, I had that clarity, because when I came back, it was that shocking. It was this sense of, I look at my parents and I was, because I had experienced that sense of oneness. When I look at them, it was the sense of, they're not just my biological parents. I felt them as my equal. So I became very rebellious, because I was like, why do I have to hear what you have to say? And in the school, it came later, it continued, because I didn't want to be conditioned. And this is a very important thing, is that later in my life, many years later, when I was able to ask why my near-death experience happened when I was so young, incredibly, the way the answer came was like, it happened when you were so young because, one, you were old enough to remember, but young enough not to be conditioned yet. So I understood why I became so rebellious, not just with my parents, but in a school. I went to Catholic school, and through all my life, I did not want to be conditioned. The other thing, when I came back, I looked at myself and I had that absolute clarity. I am not this child. I am not a child. Because this is the other thing. People will say, but you had the mind of a child. And I said, no. Once I started to remember who I truly was, my body was the body of a child. See, my language was I was limited by the language I knew, but I was not. My feeling, my awareness was, I am not this child. So after that, I never really felt that I was a child. And when I look at other children, I was like, what is happening to these people? They don't know anything. So I couldn't relate. I started to have abilities I didn't have before. So I'm telling you, I'm just about to be three years old, and no long after my NDE, now I could read and write. See, how can you explain that? I could resolve mathematical problems. I could put together complex puzzles, and I started to develop more complex language. So it's like, and for me later in school, everything was pretty simple. And it was like, to me was the sense, Alan, like, I'm not learning anything, I'm just remembering. And incredibly, although all these seem like incredible gifts, over time it became more like burdens, because there was not a school system that could understand this. There was not people around me that could understand this. So despite having all this awareness and all these abilities, I became pretty isolated. I felt different. I felt angry. I refused to eat. I didn't want to be with anyone. I even reached the point that I didn't want to be touched. I was just angry. And then it's when I said that, gosh, the help that I needed came in the most miraculous way. And what happened was that after my NDE, I started to have what we know today as out-of-body experiences. And at the time, we didn't even know any of these, nobody around. You know, this is the other thing, Alan. I always say that it's like, for me, the doors never close, because after that came all these out-of-body experiences and more things that I will mention in a minute. But I always say it's like the door never closed. Going back to that part that I never was able to forget. Then later, the way the answer for this came was like, of course the door never closed, because there are no doors. In reality, when we look at the sun shining, it shines for everyone. The light of God, the light of consciousness, the light of awareness is here for everybody, always. the doors never close. The ones that close the door is ourselves, due to conditioning, due to beliefs, due to the culture, due to our experiences, our fears, whatever is there, we start closing those doors. But at that moment, it was like, I was so young, so free from all conditioning that, and now with this awareness that those doors were completely open. And now every time I went to sleep, I was going back to that realm of the light. Of course, my parents fired that lady that almost let me drown, hire a new one. But this is the other thing. Look at how everything happens with the perfection that it meant to happen. Because I was sleeping a lot, because I wanted to be in this realm of the light. This lady was okay with that, because if the child is sleeping, you don't have to pay attention. You just always, he's behaving, he's doing good there. So that gave me the chance to sleep a lot. My parents kept working, and then every time I slept, I was back in this realm of the light. And in one of these journeys, I was surrounded by starlight figures. So, and I even see what your background there, and imagine something like that. I in one of these journeys one day, is like infinite starlight figures. But the difference with your background is that this whole space was bright light, and the lights were all shining in different colors, and it was absolutely beautiful. And then in another journey, one of these starlight figures that was shining in like pure gold, it approached me and it shaped itself into a human form, like showing me we are the same. And it's when I had that clarity, and I'm like, oh, you are a being of light. And this light, this being touched me, and I had this clarity, and I woke up, and I wanted to now sleep all the time. So, but now this is the part, and look at how the teachings present in all different ways, is that clarity that we need balance. I could not be the baby that slept forever, the girl that slept forever. So now something needed to happen in order to balance this, because all I wanted to do was to sleep. Then not long after, one day I'm taking a shower, and I'm just relaxed there in the shower when this blue, intense, shiny light appeared in the bathroom. And now I am in this state of awe. Now the beings of light are here. So now I started to see the beings of light everywhere. So I didn't need to be sleeping. And that balanced that situation right there. And then I started to feel the sense of being home. And it comes another teaching. And it's the part where I realized years later, at this moment, I didn't have these clarities. Later in my life is when all these realizations came. And it was the sense of like, oh, I get it. Home is not a place, it's a state of being. Because when I started to see the beings of light here, I started to heal. And I started to feel the sense of being at home. And I started to wanting to play with my sisters and talk to my parents and communicate with others. So the healing started to happen. So at the beginning, it always was the sense, I want to go back there. I want to go there. And what this was showing me is like, you don't have to go anywhere. It's here. So, wow, I started to feel that sense of I can be here and I can be okay. But this is the other thing. I was, because I didn't have the sense of that I belong to this. I didn't have, for me, it was like, I'm not this person. I didn't feel related to my name, to my body, to Ingrid. So every time that people call my name, I will feel very aggravated. And although I was healing, I was feeling better, I was throwing these big tantrums. Because again, imagine a child that I couldn't comprehend what is happening. And people around me didn't have any clue what was happening to Ingrid. And then at this moment, that one night they were calling me for dinner, Ingrid. And I'm like, oosh, don't call me like that. So the lady came like, Ingrid, we're calling you for dinner and you're not coming. And I said, don't call me like that. And then I would just say, that is not my name. And the lady said, then what is your name? How should we call you? And I said, I do not need one. Of course, they had it. They sent me to bed. And then I was so mad. I was crying. And it's when I asked, like in my suffering, it was always this question, like, why is this happening to me? But this is the first time, like I said to you, by now I could see the beings of light. I could smell them. Every time they were present, I could smell flowers, like the most delicious. Just imagine the most incredible perfume, the most amazing flowers. And I'm like, oh, they are here. I could sense. And now this is the first time I started to be able to hear. And it's when I heard the voice talking to me, like almost like in a whisper, like, this is our secret, like saying to me, it's going to take time for them to understand that names are not needed in the realm of the light. You don't imagine how relief, because it was that sense like, oh, I'm not crazy. Yeah, I don't need a name. And they said, and of course, and later I understood too that names are important, that are needed in our human experiences, that they carry frequency, they're beautiful. But at that moment, that was my experience. And it was that validation. I now understand why I don't need a name. But they also tell me at that moment, the beings of light told me that I had to be quiet. It wasn't all like, you cannot talk, but they say you have to be quiet because they're not going to understand. But the other thing they said to me, you will never be alone. There will be people in your path to help you and to guide you. And the other thing was that they said to me, all of these you will share someday. This is not for you to keep. When the time is right, you will share and they will be ready. So imagine that was, oh gosh, 30 years before I could even really start talking openly about it. This is the part, Alan, that was so important, knowing that someone was going to be in my path to help me and to guide me. And that first person was my mom. So, and the way this happened is because in school, now I was in kindergarten and I started to paint beings of light everywhere. And I was like painting in the books and painting in everywhere. And then the teacher got curious and she's like, what is this? Are like the sun, the stars? And I said, no, these are my friends, the beings of light. And it's when she's like, oh, she's having imaginary friends. And the school, they already thought that I was different because like I said to you, I kept really quiet. I didn't play with other children. I was just observing. And then my mom came to the school. And it's when we realized that I not just could see beings of light, but I was seeing more things. And because I was painting auras around all my paintings, I was coloring auras. So it's when the teacher is showing all this to my mom. And it's when I wanted somebody to believe me so bad that I turned to my mom and I said, Mom, these are my friends, the beings of light, and these are the colors that we wear. And my mom made these big mom eyes like, be silent. And I'm like, ooh, because she didn't want me to be in trouble at school. So it's like I went quiet. And when we left and we were in our way home is when my mom said, I believe you. So imagine being finally validated by somebody who's that sense of like, and I didn't know what she believed me, but it's when she revealed to me that she also could see things that nobody could. And it's when she revealed to me that she could see what we call spirits. So that was there, the moment when I just felt like, okay, now for real, I'm not alone in this human world. And I started to have that little sense I can belong here.
What was the most meaningful thing that the beings of light have taught you?
Oh my gosh. there's so many teachings, but you know, there's few things here. There was an analogy they gave me now that we're talking about peeling layers and being the light and all that. They showed me an analogy like the lamp back there. You know, they say that lamp, there's a light that there's a light bulb that is on, and you are always that light. You are and always have been. But due to conditioning, due to cultural beliefs, religion, your own experiences, life, you see that lamp has a shade. Now there's a shade. And now like you put another one and you put another one and you put another one. And I always like to have a cloth and I cover myself with cloths. And I said, you always have been that light. But what is the thing that really separates us from everything? Fear and attachment. And then now we are, imagine through all those, burying all those layers until you cannot shine your light anymore. Until you cannot speak your voice anymore, because if you're covered by cloths, by shades, then now, your voice is there. You cannot listen anymore because so people say, how can I communicate and listen to the beings of light? You have to peel the layers. How you peel the layers? By becoming quiet, becoming still, becoming present. And it's the whole work of detachment and knowing, becoming an observer of yourself, know thyself, knowing who you are. But I said to you, and you know, we all use the analogy of peeling the onion, peel the layers. But I always say to people, what happens when you peel an onion? You cry a lot. Why? Because we become attached, and attachment is what creates suffering. So it's the work of light. So the beings of light just showed to me that clarity as you peel. The evolution meaning peeling, not creating more. It's going back to the root, to the source that you are. You know, and the teachings are so present to me all the time. Like last week, I was on vacation, and I guess when we are in that state of being so relaxed and calm and still and quiet, I receive very profound teachings. And in the Bible, there's this whole beautiful paragraph that talk about the Word, and it says, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God." See how profound it is. It's showing us, and then they show it to me in this way. In the beginning, there was a flower, and the flower was with God, and the flower was God. And the beginning, there was Alan, and Alan was with God, and Alan is God. See, what is this meaning? The essence that we are. Where do we come from God? We are made at the image and likeness of God. And that's why since I was very little, it was that sense of, don't label me. Without knowing, I knew I am beyond my name. I am beyond my body. I am beyond my personality. But at the same time, I am the body, the name, the personality. We are not pushing anything away. We're including everything. And I love when I listen this, it says, God did not create the universe. God is the universe. And that is completely different. That's when all these teachings come from the beings of light. And it's when it shows me that we call oneness. Sees that force, what we are all part of creation. We're all part of God. We're not separated. It's not creation and God. Everything is consciousness. Everything is the light. And this is another teaching now that you mentioned. Oh God, there's so many beautiful teachings. But one is when they said to me, you don't imagine, Ingrid, how grateful every human being would be if they realize that for you to exist, trillions and trillions and trillions of subatomic particles have to be in agreement. They say you are a divine intention. It's like, whew, trillions of particles have to agree to be you. Oh my God. So now even when I see anything, like I just grab like a pen, anything like this, and I'm like, oh, trillions and trillions of subatomic particles agree to be this, so I can use it. Oh my God. So it's like being in this state of appreciation and gratitude. They said to me, Ingrid, gratitude is the highest vibrational frequency there is. And when you're in that state of gratitude, appreciation for anything that is there, and when you're low and when you're down and you look around and say, oh, that pot, that flower, that window, that chair, whatever is there for us. The very, very, very reason I have this body, this temple, for us is like, it's trying to remember that behind everything there's an inherent goodness.
That's beautiful. A lot of people will say in the comments, they're like, well, why did this person get to have a near-death experience when my relative, died? Or why do you think that you had these experiences?
Alan, I think that everybody's journey is so different. And at the same time, it's like, it's incredible because we compare ourselves with others. And we tend to say what that person is and why not me this. And even me, myself, like even having all these gifts and all that, when I grew up, I didn't want to have it. So some may think, oh, but she had this thing and I don't. I said, but I didn't want it. So I say that the journey of each one of us is so precious, so incredible, so perfect, but we sometimes take things for granted. We compare ourselves and we don't want the experience that we have. We want the experience that others have. But and it took me many, many years to reach to that point where I was able to be okay and to feel the sacredness of my own uniqueness. And I said, every one of us is unique. And the experience that each one of us is having is what we need for our own evolution, for our own awakening. See, I could not have your experience, you could not have mine, because you are in your own process of awakening and evolution. And it's when we start just appreciating and seeing how things are put in our path, because that's what we need. See, and the reason later on I also understood I had my near-death experience when I was so young was also because all of us already have been walking the path of evolving, awakening. And when I talk about evolution, I talk more about peeling layers to be able to open that door. The realization, I am this light, I am this consciousness, I am this awareness, I am love, I am compassion, I am peace, I'm all these universal principles. But sometimes we have to live certain challenges in life to peel those layers. And in my case, I know that my NDE happened when I was so young, because I know I am an eternal being, and my process of awakening started long time ago. So for me, in my case, it meant that I needed to wake up quick. Like I came and it's like, we come to this realm, we forget. And it's like, no, you're remembering quick because you have a work to do. And you said that you were going to do this, so you better peel that layer quick, and then now you can do what you meant to do. See, and so I said the important thing for all of us is stop comparing and start acknowledging who we are, acknowledging that in our own challenges, in our own joys, or in our own pains and sufferings is the key to wake up. And I love this sentence, Alan, that says, what is in the way is the way. Yeah. So use everything that is there to fuel your awareness, to be more present. And that is really what we come to do here, to remember, to realize you are the light. And only by peeling all the layers that we have been accumulating, we can again shine that light. When I ask the beings of light, what is our purpose and what is our mission? He said, your purpose is to remember that you are the light, and your mission is to shine it in whatever you do, in whatever job you do, even if you are a doctor, if you're a carpenter, if you're a mom, if you are a dad, whatever you do.
So
yeah.
what's the point? And I don't know, what's the why do we have to forget just to have to come back to remember?
Because, and I love that question, I'm glad you asked, because, and this is an answer I received from the beings of light too. They say, because imagine why, and they said it this way, I love how they use the analogies. They say, why to carry an old wardrobe when you can have a new one? So you only meant to remember what is truly important for your evolution. See, if you're already a being that in your past life was an enlightened being, that you keep and that you will never forget. Like when people ask me, how can you not forget that you drown at 2? Because imagine the contrast that experience brought to my life, and the clarity and the awakening. I meant to remember the baseline of who I am. The rest is just added. So say, like, if you come and you meant to, or you keep remembering all the other stuff, then you lose your focus and you don't have opportunities to live new things. Imagine, even in our own life here as Ingrid, I have had many experiences that sometimes kept me attached and kept me trapped and then all the process of forgiving and forgetting, and we don't forget. So it's like, if I carry all that, let's call it baggage, then I could not be able to focus. So coming back, imagine with a complete clean wardrobe where you can get all the new stuff and new clothes, is giving us an opportunity. People don't see it that way, but this is your opportunity to start new. So imagine that you have had this certain life, and today I said, you know, Alan, I'm going to give you $10 million now. You have the choice to leave all that and say that you're living a really hard, difficult, poor life. You say you have the chance right now to take all this and start anew, fresh with everything, or just what is your choice? So when we come like, no, I want to start a new baby, fresh, new experiences. I'm not attached to anything. But in the core of your being, the real process, the real peeling of the layers is what you need. That is the only thing you want to keep. The rest, no, you just leave behind, and you have this possibility of start fresh. And that's what we have to appreciate. That's the goodness of it. The human mind tried to center in the negative, why something was taken away, instead of thinking, wow, this is my opportunity to be fresh, to be new. And if you already have with you that, I call it the baseline of awareness, of consciousness, of knowing that you're shining your light, that is going to come back pretty quick. And if that experience, a spiritual transformative experience, you will remember that was there many gurus and teachers and masters that come, and they come already with that awareness, that clarity. They don't need to have the challenge, or the other challenges will always come, but the certain experiences to go to where they already are.
In one of the interviews I watched, you talked about people that would get overwhelmed, and you talk about cleaning a castle. Is that the same thing? You start with one room in a castle instead of all of the rooms at once. Is that the same thing as peeling, just a different analogy? Peeling of the onion?
Yes, and that analogy is beautiful, because it's also the part when the beings of light said to me, Ingrid, don't be concerned for what others do. Don't be concerned about what others do. not because you don't care, but because you care so much that you fix yourself first, because you care so much that you clean your own home first, because it's the part, how can I help other, like, it's incredible. It's like, how can I help you calm your mind if my mind is a chaos? I've been acting as an hypocritic. It's like, I cannot help you if if my house is a mess, how I can go and say your house is a mess? It's like, we have to start for ourselves. And so that example of the castle, I love that analogy, because it's when people ask me always like, how can I do anything to bring peace in the world? How can I do anything? Look, the world is chaos. And I said, you can do everything or you can do nothing. I said, when you look at the problems of the world as a whole, you disempower yourself. You cannot ever think in terms of the collective. That's an excuse to do nothing. Because like I said, the world is a mess, so why do I do anything? But what about I said, and I have made this wise decision, I have the power to start from here. But again, I put the example of the castle. Say I have this huge castle, and at that moment, now I make that wise decision. I'm going to do something for the world. But if I want to fix my whole castle, my whole house in one morning, in 1 hour, in 1 minute, I completely disempower myself. And it's like, I cannot do it. I lost the battle. I better just cross my arms and say I'm done. But if at that moment I said, what about I start little by little, step by step, room by room, and I go to the kitchen, wow, it's a mess. What if I start by the table, this corner? And the moment I fix that little space, it's like, wow, I did it. And you feel that sense of gratification and the sense of like, you're good. Oh my gosh. And now I call you and I say, look what I did. How can you show me how to do that? And from there, see, now you are being that example for others, starting little by little, step by step. And now you empower yourself.
Did you always call them beings of light ever since you were little? Or is that the same thing as angels? Because I said you grew up Catholic. Did that evolve over time what you called them, or did you call them beings of light from the very beginning?
Alan, I called them from the very beginning. When I have that first encounter with the being that shaped itself into human form, the moment it touched me, I said, you are a being of light. And through time, and still today, I call them like that because, again, I never wanted to be conditioned or put conditions in anything. I didn't want to have a name. So I is still not giving them a name. And people ask me how they call, who they are. I said, I don't care. Even though I know that because of evolution and because of peeling layers, they have different levels of awareness too, and different levels of evolution. And we could just say that some of them are more evolved than others. I never wanted to put any names on anything, to the point that, and I'm glad you mentioned this, because at the age of 6, I started to see what we call spirits, same as my mom. But I didn't know. And the first time I saw the first spirit, I was petrified in fear. Like, I was in reality frozen. I couldn't even talk. And then when I saw my mom moving, I don't tell the whole story because it's too long. It was early in the morning. I chased my mom and I said, Mom, the spirits and the beings of light are not the same, because the spirits cause me fear. Well, with the beings of light, I was at home in peace. What is going on? And it's when my mom said, explain, because at that moment my mom thought I was seeing the same thing as she was. And I was like, no. So I explained to her, and it's when my mom started to cry. And she said like, oh, I think that you see angels, because all we knew was the Catholic teachings. And it's like, I said to my mom, I don't think so, because they don't have wings. And it's when my mom said they have to be your guardian angels, because what else? And it's when I asked them, because I already have been talking to them I was 6 years old when this happened. And then it's when I asked the beings of light. First, I said, what is with these? I call them dark spirits, because the way I saw the first spirit was like a silhouette. And it was super scary. So I call them dark spirits. So again, they were not bad, nothing. It was my perception. And I understood that why they caused me fear. So it's when I asked, what is with these dark spirits? And they said, and I was expecting them to tell me, yeah, they're different, whatever. And the answer was incredible, Alan. It's when they said, those that you call dark spirits, you, as in essence, we are all the same. The difference is the level of awareness that you have about who you truly are. And then they said, these beings that you see, that being that you saw the other night, is like there's some beings that have some keen interest in the matters of this world, and they have forgotten who they truly are. And they don't even realize that they have died, and they are so attached. But that's the work of the beings of light, even us here, to help them remember who they truly are, so they can detach and go. And then I'll realize who they are. So it's when I also understood that the fear happened, not because they were bad, it's because I was vibrating in a different frequency. To be able to be connected with beings of light, you have to vibrate pretty high. And these beings, they were vibrating in a lower frequency. So the moment I saw this, it wasn't that they were bad, it was the shock. It's just different vibration, that's it. And then after that, I just learned to stay in that, or call the beings of light, because this is other experience I have had in the past. When the beings of light said that the problem is that we don't call them. See, we can always have the presence of the beings, and they're always here, but we don't call for their help. So, and the other question I asked, now that you asked me if they are angels, is when I said, my mom said that you are angels. Is that what you are? And the answer was beautiful, because they said to me, we are what you want us to be. That's how compassionate the universe is. It presents to us in the way that we can understand it, and in the way that is best for you. And then from that day on, it's like I really never needed to ask again. Later on, many years later, when I was about 15 and I was learning about ascended masters, is when I asked again, are you ascended masters? And it's when I now had more understanding and more clarity, like, what is the difference? Then the answer was the same. Remember, in essence, we're all the same. The difference, now they explain, now that I had more clarity, because between 6 and now 16, 17, I already had read more books and understand more. It was, they explained this part of, it all depends how evolved you are. And incredibly, people think that evolution is knowing more. Evolution is actually peeling layers, is realizing that you're not all of that, that you are, in the end, is the all-knowing being, but is the all-knowing being that knows that is all-knowing, not the knowledge that you get from books, because the more you think you know, the more you realize, oh God, how much I don't know. So at the end, I always say, I think I know all these things, but I don't know anything.
So if someone wants to raise their vibration, or they want to peel more layers, like, it seems it's almost like paradoxical, because it's like you want to do stuff, you want to learn, but it's not about learning so much, right? It's about growing. Or how would you describe it?
I describe it that incredibly, all the knowledge that come from out there is to help you realize that is pretty much knowing that in essence, I am already that. You know, there was a time when the beings of light said to me, when you're looking for happiness, you are denying that you are already that. See, in essence, in the core that I am already that joy, that peace, that consciousness, that presence, that joy. So the true question is, what am I doing to not be that? See, and incredibly, only through contrast, as I was mentioning, through challenge, through instruction, through knowledge, in these outer realities that, you know, I always say, how can you know what you want if you don't know what you don't want? Same thing, how I know who I am, first I have to know what I am not. See, it's not possible to know. The essence that you are is that. But in order to get there, first you have to have the control. The same thing, how can you know happiness if you never have been unhappy? You could not know it. How can you know health if you never have been sick? It's not possible. You cannot know it. See? So first, sometimes we need, so somebody was telling me the other day, I am doing all these practices to be nobody. And I said, yeah, but in order to be nobody first, you have to experience being all of it. And you have to go to the place of knowing yourself and knowing even all the aspects of your inner child, all the aspects, all your emotional body, your physical body, your energetical body. You have to know all of it in order to dissolve it. See, it's hard to understand if we don't have as basis that analogy. How can you know health if you never have been sick? How can you know happiness if you never have been sad? See, that's the only way. So sometimes we require all this process of realizing I am not this in order to know who you truly are. And how we get there? By meditating, by quieting the mind, by reading all the scriptures, by first is, you know, it's like when this is the other example. I'm glad that you brought this, and this now came with this other clarity, and people give it in many different ways. It's say like, and I give it like this in a class the other day, like the orange juice. You could know everything about the orange juice. I could know the oranges, the chemistry of the oranges, the color of the oranges, even make orange juice. So I could know everything about the oranges or the orange juice. But if you never, ever, ever drank it, you have never drank the orange juice, then you really don't know orange juice. See, so sometimes at the beginning, we need to just have all this knowledge, but only when you apply it. And that's when I bring the clarity to people that spirituality is not a belief. Spirituality is science. Because we go to this place of, first, I know orange juice. I know everything about orange juice. But if I just know and keep it as only my intellectual knowledge, is going to stay as I know orange juice at the level of the surface. What happened, or what we call belief? What happened the moment that you decide, I'm drinking this orange juice? Now it's experiential. That's why spirituality is experience and is science. Why? Because you apply the scientific method. What happened at the beginning with the scientific method is the need of wanting to know, curiosity, observation. I want to know. Then, you know, Ingrid told me this, or Alan told me this. Oh, that orange juice tastes like this. Or I can tell you there's a cloud up there, and I said, Alan, beyond those clouds, there's a sky. You could choose to believe me, or you could say, I'm going to build my own airplane and I'm going to go there and see if that's true. So at that moment is when you now create a hypothesis. Oh, is this true? And now after that, you go and you try it. Now you do the experience. And after that, now you get a result. And with this result, you can compare. Now is when I say, see, you apply the scientific method. So spirituality, science is the part where you go do it. How is to be compassionate? Be compassionate. How is to calm your mind? Go calm it and experience it yourself. Oh, now I can really connect with oh, wow, yeah, I did it. There's a blue sky after the clouds. See, so it cannot just stay at the level of the head. But again, at the beginning, it's all taken from the contrast, the challenge, the books, the outer reality, the experiences, and it becomes experiential. You drank the orange juice, now you really, really know it. And you know what is the incredible thing about this? Going back to one of the first questions you asked me, that you will never forget. Once you drink the orange juice, see the rest, like when we were talking, why do you forget? Because the rest of the stuff is not needed anymore. Yeah, now you know the other concepts about the orange juice and stuff, but now you know it. And once you know it at the experiential level, it becomes your baseline. You will never forget. And that you keep. The rest, not needed.
Yeah. My fear with that is, what if there's a bunch of like negative things that I haven't experienced yet, or my soul hasn't experienced? Is there any way to know that I don't have to experience, getting my head chopped off, or, that sort of stuff? Or is that sort of the experiences that you don't have to experience?
It all depends. It all depends. And this is what we call, and that's when we call it free will, but that's when the free will comes to place. See, we always have given that opportunity. And, I hear people that just mention it a lot. It's like how you want to live your life. And we all have this in our lives. It's like from the place of always being challenged, or from the place of wanting to pick that path of clarity and light. And say that there's a challenge in your life, and there's at that moment you have the choice, the challenge present. And a lot of the time, people get trapped in the story of me and poor me, and I call it the cul-de-sac of suffering. It's the part of Ingrid and my story, Ingrid and my drama, and sometimes that is needed. I don't have anything against that, but we get trapped in our own suffering. And what is that free will? People say I have free will because they pick the clothes that they wear, because they pick the career, because they pick the food that you eat. And I said, that's not free will. That's called free of choice. Because guess what? The clothes that you wear are conditioned by your culture. The food that you eat is conditioned by your culture. You will be eating worms or insects or something else. You will be wearing whatever else, or pick a different career, not been doing what we're doing. So all that we do all the roles that we play are conditioned by our outer reality, our culture, the things that the environment that we are in. The true free will, Alan, is when I am in that moment, where I am in that cul-de-sac of suffering, as I call it, and I create a pause. I breathe deep and I say, I choose to ask myself, what is this for? What is this teaching me? There's a purpose in what is this trying to show me? The moment I see this, I stop seeing my challenges as problems, and they turn into opportunities. And if I decide to look at my life and to look now, every time there's a challenge, I know more challenges are going to come, because it's like the ocean. The ocean is always going to have waves. And I love this analogy because it's not asking the ocean to stop having waves, but asking to ourselves to learn to surf the waves. See, that is very different. So it's that I can just go out there and say, no matter the wave, I'm learning to surf them all. And there might be some very big that will drop me, but I know how to get up. And that's the way we become. The more you practice presence, the more you calm your mind, the more you align and center yourself, the more you go back to that place of inner wisdom and connection. And you don't need to lose your head. If you really, really learn to align, because there's things that are not needed anymore. See, I had an experience in which is this incredible how things can, if there's, you know, we can see time in two different ways, linear and perpendicular, or vertical. So if we live in life in a linear way, it's like we're being affected by everything that is there all the time. But the moment you calm your mind and you make changes in the inner and you become aligned, are connected, the more, say, that you peel layers, Alan, the less certain challenges are needed. And I have had experiences in which later I was not picked for a job or something, and later I learned, wow, the person that picked that job or was picked for the job died or had an accident. And I wondered why it wasn't me. And I said, because this challenge, this is the free will, is the decision that you make. I want to awaken. I want to peel these layers. So now that accident or that death or that circumstance wasn't needed for you anymore, because that big challenge maybe was needed to shake you. You have to wake up, and you haven't. See, I said to people, it's like when you're very comfortable in the couch, like, oh, what do you need? Nothing. You could spend your time there and forget about, like, and it's when the whole thing is going to shake you and it's going to say, no, a flooding will come, a hurricane, a tremor, anything that moves you out of that state. And wow, there's more I need to do. And you know what, how you know that there's more we need to do, Alan? Because we're here. You were completely resolved. There's only two reasons why we're here. Because we have not resolved ourselves. So there's still too much more to peel and heal and awaken. And we haven't arrived yet to the source of that we are. Or because we make the decision to come back and serve. See, there's beings that are full awake and they decide to come back because they want to serve humanity. See, that will be the only two reasons really why you're here. And we start feeling it when you awaken. The sense of service awakens in you. And you don't, like when the beings of light said, this is not for you to keep. The moment that I felt I was ready, you know, for me happened, I went to Costa Rica. I almost drowned again. I was trapped by the waves, and the waves started to turn me around, and one wave, the other. I thought I was dead. And then my husband was there, other surfers that got me out of the water. And standing like there at the edge and in the beach is when I look at the horizon, kept seeing the waves, and it's when I had the realization that throughout the whole time that I was being turned and tossed, and I was never ever fearful. There was not even one bit of fear. Why? I don't know. That inner peace that I've been working with for years. Because this is the other thing, Alan, people don't want to do the work. You ask them, meditate. I don't have time. I don't want, I don't care, but give me the answers. We have to do the work, and we have to be committed, and we have to want it. And after years, I started to meditate when I was 8. Even I stopped in times. It was that always that sense, how can I be like, and it was that sense, I want to go back to that light. And then in that accident, now I'm standing there, I have that sense of like, oh, I did not have fear. And now I'm looking at the horizon, at the waves. And it's when I have that feeling, I'm ready for whatever wave is coming. I'm ready to serve. And it's when I have that incredible sense of like, I'm here to serve. Because what is the point if we discover that light that we are, but we cannot shine it? We cannot offer it to others. We cannot give it. So it's like, and giving it, this is the other thing, Alan. It was a moment where when I had what I call my big awakening. I was still working for NASA at the time. And I was in the, like in the scientific world, imagine what a big contrast. And I'm there and I'm in the office and I'm working in like, whoa. And I thought, and I asked the being, so like, what can I do or say to these people? And then the answer came in an incredible way. They say, do or say nothing. The light of your awareness is all they need. And they made this clear for me. They say, your path is the path of gentleness. You're not here to convince anybody about anything, but be that light. Be what you have discovered that you are, and that's all you need. And guess what? From that state of being is that the doing and the saying will come, because it will come from wisdom. So now the words that you say come from that place of calmness, wisdom, the actions. And people that start looking at you and they say, just be. And I will go through the corridors and people that when they would change me from one department to other, don't go. You're the one that brings happiness and joy to the space. I wasn't saying anything. It's just being that the most incredible projects happen because you're aligned with that wisdom. See, and then that is the choice. So you don't have to be fearful. You have to be committed to, I want to choose wisdom. I want to choose peace. I want to choose calmness. I want to choose awareness. And that's the answer.
I think it's in your book, but it's also in a different interview that I read that or listened to, talking about how you don't think, you just kind of allow, you just get quiet and listen. And because like the beings of light told you, you think you're thinking. Like, what is that story?
Oh, yes, that's good. Because there was one day and I'm walking and they say, you think that you are thinking? Yeah. And I said, of course, all the time. I mean, this man is always thinking. And they said, no, people are not really using the gift of thinking as a gift. See, what you're doing, what everybody's doing most of the time is not truly thinking, is remembering, trapping memories. 98% of the time you're trapping your own memories. And these go back again to you see, this is beautiful because this goes back to your question at the beginning about when people feel like, why do I forget? Because imagine being trapped in the same old same. Like I said to you, we get this opportunity to be born again, to start from zero, from the clean, complete closet, the clean wardrobe that they say, why not to take it, But what if consciously we do the work of emptying the space? I call it the closet because it's like we clutter those closets. So the garage, empty that closet, empty that garage consciously. See, not that you have to be shaken, you have to be sick, you need a big challenge, you need again to lose your head. No, what if consciously I do it? And then now I really start creating that space. So the beings of light said to me, 98% of the time, people are not really thinking, they're trapped in their own memories. And they just show me the example even of a cow. You know how cow need 3 stomachs to chew the same grass? It's like same thing. And they say the only time where people are really just using the gift of thinking as true gift is when you are connected to the creative thinking of the universe. And the only way to do that is by calming your mind. When we calm our mind, that's why all these techniques of meditation, of like steadiness, centeredness, is calm your mind. And when you do that, what happens is that you open that space of wisdom. If you think about it, the most incredible discoveries didn't happen when you were involved in the problem. You can, because you're using the same information you already have. Again, like the cow with the same grass. The answer comes the moment that the person was in vacation what you were doing, calm, relax. When you were taking a shower, when you're doing dishes, driving your car, because you just focus and just, or your mind is calm and is quiet, and the answer calm. You align with that creative thinking of the universe. So that's the other thing. We humans don't realize, don't appreciate the gift of truly being able to think in that way instead of being trapped in the same thing.
While I was reading your book, I kept thinking to myself, wow, you would be such a great like teacher. Like I want you to like teach me. And then while I was waiting for you to come online, you offer classes on your mentoring. Is that something you, or on your website, is that something that you still do, or?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I just finished teaching a 4-week course. And oh my God, if it was so beautiful, so beautiful, Alan, not just because there's teachings there, but because of the sense of community. After 4 weeks, it's just building it up, connection. You know, one of the things that when I was able to ask, look, the most simple questions, because the beings of light said is the most simple question. They say, learn to ask the right questions and you will get the right answers. And in the simple questions was like, why my near-death experience happened? And the answer was to bring the purpose or the message of the power of connection. And I see it now, like even through teaching these classes, how we build that connection. And how I started by the first in this course, the first class was know thyself in the most simple analogies and in the most simple ways without being complicated. How can we get there? And then we move to the next teaching, and I introduce just the power of mindfulness and meditation, but how to do it in a busy world, because we have to adapt. Now we know that I don't count with so many hours to meditate, how we adapt. So the teachings is how we do it with the time we have, with the busy life we have, with the schedules that we have. So people feel, and everybody in the course, I can do this. Yes, I can do it. So it's when you feel that sense, I can do it, you empower yourself. So the idea is to empower people. And this last course was the way of self-empowerment, joy, and well-being. And the next class, we went to mindfulness of the body. This is one thing I learned when I was very little. My grandma brought me to a Zen Buddhist temple when I was 12 because I wanted to die. Because I wanted to be there. I was like, I don't belong to this world. I don't belong. And then she brought me there because she was concerned, of course. And my grandmother, we didn't talk about her, but she was very important in my spiritual life. And then in this Zen Buddhist temple that was unheard in Colombia, but my grandma just wanted to learn all the spirituality and all that. She brought me there. And this monk taught me this breathing meditation technique. And at the end, I said to the monk, my grandma's a very busy lady. I don't think we can come back to the temple. And she said, you really never need to come back to the temple. And I said, why? And he said, because you already have a temple. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, you are the temple. So wherever you are, you can practice this meditation technique. And that's what I bring to people, the acknowledging, recognizing this temple. And that, yeah, we are beyond the temple, but we are the temple too. So I bring mindfulness of the body, mindfulness of breath, and mindfulness of thinking. And then in the next class, we talk about this subject that is, I think, is one of the most difficult ones. Is there's two: mindfulness of emotions, and then forgiveness. And it was bringing that clarity of the misunderstandings of forgiveness, and how forgiving is not condoning or allowing people to keep harming you. And then we went to the last class to how to be happy, how to be joyful. So this is what I want to bring to people, and I bring this very simple, all these analogies given to me by the beings of light, really simple, and they can be really funny, and yeah, we have to live in a world where we have to adapt and things have to be flexible without complications, so we can do it. Yeah, so yeah, I teach and I mentor and I have one-on-one sessions with people.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else that you want to talk about before, or that I didn't bring up? Or
I guess I would like to close with this vision I had, because it's the part of, you asked me and many people ask me, how can I connect, or how can I be aligned and in connection with the beings of light? And maybe before closing, I have two things to share, if it's not too long. One thing is when you make this decision of, like I say, using your free will. I want this. And one of the things I asked from years ago was, I had that clarity, that in my own clarity, not that I don't respect what everybody wants, but my wanting was, I didn't want materialistic things. My deepest desire was, I wanted three things. And there was for me, it happens that the beings of light, when they wake me up 3 a.m, they just show up there, and because it's that moment in which your mind is empty and calm and free of all thinking. And then one time they asked me if a genie in the bottle would appear to you. See, they're funny. They're like, what? Which 3 wishes would you ask? And I'm like, genie in the bottle, 3 wishes? Okay. And at that moment, the only 3 things I really desired were wisdom, compassion, and courage.
wow.
Because I thought, if I have wisdom, imagine, Alan, you have wisdom, you know what to do, where to do it, when to do it, where to be. That gives you the rest. From wisdom, you win the world, you win everything. I'm like, wisdom. The next thing, compassion. Because I have realized it's not enough to have empathy. You have to have compassion, because it's when you really want to alleviate. Empathy is, oh, I feel your pain. Compassion is, I want to do something to alleviate that pain. It's what I call love in action. When you're compassionate, is a part of the heart. And the next thing was courage. Because if I have courage, I can continue, especially this spiritual path is not an easy one. I'm like, wow, I can make the decision every day, I want this. So those were my 3 main desires. And that's what I wanted. And for years, that's what was there in my list, my bucket list. And then years later, I didn't know. So you don't know where you are in your evolution or in your process of awakening, again, only by comparison, And then after years, 3 a.m, ping, beings of light there. Same question. If the genie in the bottle was here, what would you ask? 3 wishes. Again? What? But look, now is when I realized where I was in my evolution. Because at that moment, Alan, I didn't even have 3 wishes. At that moment was like, I only had one. And that wish was not even for myself. It was a wish for humanity. And I said at that moment, wow, my only wish would be that every human being realizes the abundance that you are. If you realize the wholeness and the abundance that you are, then envy will end. Then greed will end. Hunger will end. Fight will end, because you will not need to take anything from anyone. And it's when giving and receiving becomes one. Because now you don't need to take, you give. I am everything. What do I need to take? It's like, whoa. It's that place of like, you become a giver. But the other place now that really to end is how you get there. By calming your mind. And it's when the beings of light gave me this other gift. One, again, woke me at 3 a.m, and now I have these visions. And when I have these visions, I am there. I'm there. And then in this vision, I see a lake. And the lake was completely peaceful, calm. And then there's a being of light there holding a rock. And he looked at me with these kind of like naughty eyes. I'm like, oh, what is my expectation? That when he drops that rock in the water, is going to disturb the peace of this beautiful lake. So look, my expectation, again, we go back to what we know. And then the being of light toss the rock in the lake. And the moment the rock touches the water, it did not disturb the water. It did not create a ripple. The rock just went through. And it's when the being of light told me, this is the way someday you have to become. That no matter the challenge, no matter the circumstance, you can keep yourself calm. And that's a mastery. It's the place where no matter what happened, you can be present with whatever it is. And they said to me, why do you think that the human beings are made of 70% of water? I said, Ingrid, everything is assembled. And they said, because the work is to learn to keep your inner water calm. Keep your inner water calm. So now every time, and I said, just bring this to people as something fun to do. When I'm in the line in the bank, when I am in my car, when I am wherever in the supermarket and the line is long. Ingrid, keep your inner water calm. Calm. See, and stop like having those expectations of how things should be. And just be with what is. There.
Wow. Perfect. That's such a, yeah, you or the beings of light, both of you have a very good way of communicating that. Just, I'm a very visual person, or I like to visualize things. And so it really helps. When you hear them, do you physically hear them, or is it in your head, or have you physically heard a voice?
You know, there's in all different ways. Yeah. People ask me this question and it's like, you know, before I even, somebody asked that question, I never even thought about it because it's so natural that I never even made the distinction. Then I remember when I had to stop and think, how is this working? Because it's happening in the two different, I have met beings of light in many different ways. Most of the time it's just light. And because there's no really voice as we know it, we could say it's more like a telepathic type of stuff. So even I can be surrounded by many beings of light, but I don't need to see them as form. I don't need that part. If you need it, then they will present to you like that. See, it's incredible. That's why they say we present to you in the way that you need us to present to you. But in my case, I don't need to see form. So I see them as light. And even though I could be surrounded by many, I know who's talking, although I'm not seeing a mouth moving or anything like that. I know who is talking. So it's let's say that you have a spiritual, same as we have physical senses, say that we have spiritual senses. So like when people talk about the third eye or the inner ear, stuff like that, is like you're able to see, feel, smell, sense things that are not in this physical reality. But it's like people say to me, how you summon them or how they summon you. I say, no, it's nothing like that. Everything is here for everybody always. But it all depends where you have your antenna. What is your dial? So when you calm your mind, you learn to put your dial in the right channel, in the right frequency. And now You can communicate with everything right here and now. So yeah, that's the way that, but I also have met beings of light in like human form, and it sounds more like the human voice. So it all depends. Yeah. You know what is beautiful about all this? That I know that I am not doing anything. I just say, I am a vehicle. I am. And to me, it's like, actually, I have to even get out of the way. I say, Ingrid, get out of the way. And then let the light shine through. It's like, I am an instrument, I am a vehicle, and it's that sense I'm not doing anything.
Definitely what a lot of us need right now. I get too sucked into the news and the doom and gloom way too often, and I have to keep reminding myself, like, no, there's good in the world, there's good people, I got to focus on the light, like you said. Well, I think you said in before, it's either you're suffering or you're in the light. That's kind of the two different ways of looking at it. And so,
and it's your choice. You know, before we go to the beings of light, this is for you now that you say that it can be sucked in sometimes in the outer reality. If you learn that everything is an opportunity, it doesn't matter. Because guess what, Alan? You use that you're seeing there to fuel your awareness. That news, that moment, that challenge, whatever it like, I'm using this to be more present. So you can use anything that is in the way as the way. See, this is the perfection of it. It's your choice. I can choose to be trapped, or I can choose to use that as a way to be more present, to be more still, to be more here. And it becomes amazing. You know, for me, it's happened nowadays. The first time it happened, I was in the bathroom just looking at myself, then in the mirror, getting ready. And it's when I received this message that a challenge is coming. I was in all like, what? So now at that moment, I said, this is perfect, but you only can reach that state when you are in the openness of knowing challenge is an opportunity. Otherwise, it doesn't come. But that's why I see it. The next, you know how surfers love the big wave? It's just like that. You're like, a wave is coming because there's a layer I have not peeled. This is an opportunity for me to evolve. It's an opportunity for me to grow. It's an opportunity to see an aspect of Ingrid I haven't seen. So, but because I'm already worn, what I do, I put my seatbelt on, so I'm ready for it. So what I do, I meditate more, I calm my mind more, I align more, I'm more present. So this challenge come, and yeah, it could sometimes get me under the water, but guess what happened? You get out faster. And you align yourself faster, and you have the clarity faster. I even have a friend that says, I'm waiting for you to give me the phone call and say that you learned, what did you learn from that challenge? Because it just happens like that. And then with that, the being so light said to me, Ingrid, when you look at flower, you look at that flower there, what do you see? God. Some people don't use God, good. Because flowers are the highest expression of beauty, of goodness. Like, so they say, when you see a flower, you see God. And when there is a challenge, you call for God. So God is always present. See, and if you don't call it God when you have a challenge, you call for good. You call for answers, you call for clarity, you call for something. Give me goodness. So goodness, God is always present. See, so use any of your challenges, anything as an opportunity. Say, I'm using this to fuel my awareness. Yeah, so now you start seeing challenges as a good thing. See, that's when this word equanimity comes to play. Be present with whatever it is. Not pushing anything away, but integrating everything.
Yeah, that's I mean, yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that's definitely the way to do it. It's just, I guess you have to constantly remind yourself kind of, that's the point of meditation, right? Just kind of getting centered, bringing it all back in and going, okay, no, it's okay. I've been reminding yourself of that until it becomes second nature.
Yes, yes.
So,
And that's what we do when we do it intentionally. That's why
mhm.
intention is so important. That intentionally, I have the intention to remind myself, this is the way. You get up in the morning, and I said, again, I used the really simple, fun analogies. I said to people, how you want to eat your toast, your bread today, with the best butter or with poison butter? I said, make your decision every single morning, how you want to eat your breakfast, how you have the chance to bake a cake today with the best ingredients or with poison. Then you poison yourself, and if you give that cake to others, you poison everybody. So is that, and you know what is the most precious thing about all this, Alan, and how compassionate the universe is, that you can make this decision every second of your life. And when you make that decisions, the mistakes that you think you make turn into the path that brought you to this moment. So it's like when that's one of the things I had in my big awakening, is when I realized nothing ever happened to me. It happened for me. So it's when I could be at that moment of like, oh. So forgiveness, simply in my case, in that moment, forgiveness happened. It was the realization, there's nothing to forgive because nothing ever happened to me, or everything is forgiven, either or, like, because if all this is for my own goodness, in reality, even it was shaking me hard, Ingrid, look, and you read my book, there's so many sufferings there, but if all this didn't happen, I didn't grow in empathy, in compassion, in self-compassion, in awareness, in love, in all the stuff. So it's like, thanks for all of these. Yeah.
I keep saying one last thing, but seriously, the last thing is, you talk in your book, you've had depression numerous times. Do you still battle with that, or is it gone completely? I mean, I guess a lot of people in the spiritual community think that their lives are going to be perfect. Like, I'm awakened, that's life, that's going to be great. But from what my experience is, it's like the wave analogy. It's always ups and downs. Is your lake staying pretty calm, or do you still have?
Yeah, no, my lake is not calm. I still have many challenges, but I don't have depression. That's the most
Okay, good.
important thing. My depression ended about 10 years ago after having existential depression for all my life. After being depressed and really sick with that for many years, it ended. You know when that ended? When I started to serve. Because there was a force that was greater than anything else. And we know this, that when we help others, there's that sense of feeling of goodness, of joy. Like the moment I changed my focus of attention from Ingrid and poor Ingrid and my cul-de-sac of suffering, and I feel empathy and compassion for when we are there, all of us. But when I was able to look out and say, I can use all these that has been in my life to help others. I can help someone else. And it's like, I give you another, and it happened in reality when I was in my own closet for real. And the closet had blinds, and I opened the blinds, and I'm like, there's a whole world out there. And I had the experience in Costa Rica when I almost drowned, and I'm like, I'm ready to serve. And when that door of serving opened, the depression ended for good. And again, it doesn't mean I haven't had many challenges, like things happen and I don't like this, or people don't like me, or whatever, or how many things. And my mom died, and I went into this really, really deep grief, and moments of sadness, and moments to, there was a moment where the beings of light said even to me, your inner child works begin. When you're ready, sometimes these things happen, and now I have to go and work with all my emotional things that I have not resolved, because sometimes writing is not enough. That's very cathartic, and that's the beginning. But now how you integrate all this, and it's when my serious work with mindfulness started. Become an observer of myself. And it's when the beings of light say, know thyself. I asked them, how can I know to understand? And I said, how can I do to unravel and understand the mysteries of the universe? I asked for nothing, and they said to me, to understand and unravel the mysteries of the universe. Oh no, first they said to me, Ingrid, you are already the universe. So to understand and unravel the mysteries of the universe, know thyself. And incredibly, after I had my awakening, the road of really peeling layers, and what I said before, the moment you peel an onion, you cry a lot. Yes, because we're attached. So it was when I started to really face my loneliness, really face my sufferings that I have had, really face my grieving, really face. And they showed me a big pool, and they said, it's not about running away. How you get to the other side of the pool? By jumping in the water, by going through. And it's when I started to face to face with all that, my anger, my loneliness, my sadness. And this is part of my teaching now. How can we face it, nurture it, investigate it, be with it, and it dissolves. So it's been the work of dissolving, not pushing away. And how you dissolve? I put the example, if a little child comes to you with a boo in the finger, and he says to you, oh, and it hurts, and you ignore it, what happened? The big tantrum, and it hurts more, and it's now turning to like a huge wound. And that's us. When we ignore the parts of ourselves, the big pain comes until it manifests in sickness. The moment that you say, oh, yes, this hurts, and you tell the little kid yes, and you give a kiss, it's like, oh, the miracle happened. Even if the whole thing didn't heal right there, it dissolves. The suffering dissolves. See, the pain might remain because it needs to heal the wound, but the suffering ends. And that's what we do with us. The moment we really turn within, it's like you become that observer. I'm like, where does it hurt? Here. And we start the process of nurturing it, understanding it, forgiving it. So that's all the healing. And for me, it was like that. So it's like there's many ways, but I have learned to surf the waves. And there's times where I have my head under the water, but again, I have learned to get the head out of the water faster. And just this work, Alan, of serving, heals everything for me. It's like when I can share, when I can be with groups, when I even teach my classes, I don't even charge too much because I want, but there's this thing with the money, because always people feel that that's another wound right there. But it's clear that sometimes when I really see that someone can afford something that they really cannot do it, I do it for free. But many people need to have that push of, if you pay for something, you really value it. And you don't miss the class. And I have done this. I offered class and I offered up. The beings of light told me, and even in this last class, I offered for free, like about 12 people. Because the beings of light tell me this person, this person, this person. And I offer for free, and there's some that don't come because they don't feel that they have to do, and oh, I didn't pay for it. See? So it's like everything balanced. So everything comes to everybody in the way that, okay, if I put some money here or I put this effort here, I value more. So we all have to balance all those energies. See, and get the idea, everything in alignment and nothing, you know what, even in the ancient Greek, when people were already using all the teachings, the first commandments that Thales of Miletus used back in the ancient Greece, the very first two commandments there were like, know thyself and nothing in excess. What was that? The place of, to be able to be that, you have to do the process of knowing who you truly are. And nothing in excess is the part of when we get out of balance. If you eat too much, You get sick if you eat nothing. You get sick if you sleep too much. You get sick if you sleep nothing. You get sick again. Is the place of balance. How can we be balanced? And this world of contrast offers the perfect scenario to go to that place of walking the middle way. So,
Yeah. Wow.
yeah, this just, again, we could be here for hours.
Yeah. Yeah, I won't ask any more questions now, but thank you so much again for doing this. I really, really appreciate it. And I learned a lot. So it's my favorite thing to do is talk to people who have near-death experiences, read their books and learn and grow from them. So thank you for doing it. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, anytime.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that. If this is your first time to the channel and you like what you saw, it'd be ever so cool if you subscribed. You can do that by clicking on my face right there. And I hope to see you again sometime. All right, bye-bye.